I'm Nika Lewis, and this is a special CVM Youth Forum. November is Youth Month. This year, it's being celebrated under the theme, the Year of Youth, trending for a sustainable future. The month of activities, which are being coordinated by the Ministry's Youth and Adolescents Policy Division, serves to highlight and celebrate the achievements of youth excelling in their respective fields. So, today, we've assembled a group of young people to get their views on a range of issues because they are, in fact, the future. Who do we have with us?
I am Cleveland Tomlinson, graduate student in the Department of Economics at UWI-Mona.
I'm Britannia Barrett, a third-year journalism student at the Caribbean School of Media and Communications at UWI-Mona.
I'm Davian McAnuff. I am a first-year student at the University of the West Indies, currently pursuing a bachelor's degree of sociology.
I'm Brianna Blackkeller. I'm in my third year of my Bachelor's of Laws, and I'm 21.
I'm Graham Evangelist, and I'm a final year student at the University of the West Indies studying international relations and minoring in management studies.
I am Kemoy Perry, attorney-in-waiting at the Norman Manley Law School.
My name is Aidan Alexander. I'm 21 years old, and I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's degree in geography at the University of the West Indies.
I'm Demario Patterson, a student at the Norman Manley Law School.
I am Dana Crosby, a first-year computer science student at the UWI-Mona.
I'm Giovanni Mackenzie, a second-year political science student at the University of the West Indies.
All right, thank you. These are the ladies and gentlemen who are the future leaders of this country. Of course, we have many issues that we would like to discuss. The first among them are general concerns that these young people may have. What are a few of those concerns we raised earlier? But these are the ones that are more likely to impact this generation because they concern you. We'll start with you, and that's Giovanni.
Well, one of the things that I see, one of the main issues that I see in Jamaica today is that people only look at corruption on one spectrum as it relates to the government. However, I think corruption is not just a government issue, it's a cultural issue.
How so?
How so? Because corruption, let's look at corruption in a smaller frame. Now, if I go to the tax office and I stand in a line, and I'm standing in line, and someone else, let's say it's a very long line, and someone else comes in, and they just go up to the security guard or whoever is there, and they give that person, let's say, $1,000, and the security guard has them skip the line, and they come and they get through before me, who has been standing in line for at least a half hour. That is corruption, but it's very basic corruption that we do not look at. It's an issue in Jamaica that it is so embedded in our culture that everybody takes part in it, and we don't even realize that we're taking part in corruption. Okay. So that is a very
I see some heads nodding, which suggests there are a few more pointers to come. So Cleveland, I'll take you on this one.
Right. For me, there is a significant breakdown in morals and values in the society, and it really calls for a re-engineering of these social values. We need to launch aggressively a values and attitudes campaign, something similar to what was done in the 90s, because when we look at how we engage and interact with each other, it is with a degree of aggression, a degree of dislike for each other, just in how we engage and how we resolve our challenges really points to the fact that there has been a substantial decay in social values, and it has impacts on how we interact with each other. It has impacts on how we resolve our conflicts, which has significant implications for crime, violence across the country, which is very high.
Well, Demario was also in the back shaking his head in agreement. What do you make of this, Demario?
Yes, thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with Cleveland. I think that the degradation in the morality in society has really taken a toll, and I believe ultimately it was a failure on the part of society, I think, to see small negative habits and nip them in the bud early on. And because of that failure, they've graduated into these big things that we are forced to contend with now, like the high crime rate and the level of violence in society, the kind of aggression of which Cleveland spoke, the kind of aggression with which we interact with each other, the lack of regard, I believe, for the safety and security of each other. The fact that I see criminals being so, I think, emboldened to go and perform criminal activities, hurt people in front of a crowd. It shows me that the kind of regard that we had as a society for each other has significantly diminished, and that's something that we certainly need to get back for us to see a better and brighter future.
I'll take you now.
Okay, so regarding the degradation of moral values that we have in our society, it creates a space where persons feel like doing the wrong thing is just right. And I believe that as a society, as Cleveland stated, we must revise how we socialize in our communities, how we pass out information to individuals, and see if we can bring back that moral stability in Jamaica.
So we've surely expressed our thoughts on some of the issues that are close to home for us. But I notice in the back that Aidan seems to have this look of pensiveness. Aidan, what are your general concerns about what's been happening in Jamaica?
One of the general concerns I have, and one that I find particularly frightening, is that a lot of the issues we face in Jamaica are not new issues. We've created a culture for a lot of the things that we deal with today. We've created a culture of violence. We've created a culture of corruption. And this is something like, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So this is something that Amaria had mentioned earlier. We failed to nip certain things in the bud from the get-go, and it's just blossomed into something a lot bigger now. We have a culture of violence in Jamaica, in the sense that people feel like I can just go out, commit this crime, and then there's no repercussion. It's one phone call to somebody who can get me out of the situation, or there's just no consequence for it, period. It's like a football team. You know, you have 20 players, and you have one leader, the manager. And let's say from the very beginning, you've created a culture where these players feel like no matter what I do, I will always outlast the manager. Because if I play badly, we lose, and this manager loses his job, and I'll still be here. So even in 20 years, you'll have 20 different players and 5 different managers, but that culture will still be there.
So it's a bit of the phrase, the more things change, the more they actually remain the same. But I know that Graham wants to get in on this point, because Graham was just distracted by a football game earlier. So Graham, talk to us. You seem to be able to relate to the analogy of the team and how sometimes people don't always suffer from the consequences of their own actions. But do you have this concern, or is there something otherwise that's pressing on you?
The concern for me, and I do agree with Damarius and also Aiden's point, but for me, my major concern as it relates to Jamaica is the educational opportunities for young youths coming from rural areas like myself.
Okay,
right?
Where are you from in Jamaica?
Oh, I'm from Clarendon, Maypen Clarendon in Jamaica. Okay. As you could have seen recently, there was a study conducted where it shows that less than 30% of Jamaicans are enrolled in tertiary institutions. And you know, there's a very popular saying that education is a ladder out of poverty, but also poverty cripples that ladder or breaks that ladder, right? So my major concern is really how can the government proactively tackle this issue so that it doesn't get worse.
Of course, we're not only going to delve into the issues, we're also looking at potential solutions. Are there any solutions that you can see from where you are as young people?
In regards to the education point that you raised, I think there needs to be a greater focus on letting people know that tertiary institutions are not the only option available to them, as in traditional tertiary institutions, such as University of the West Indies or, you know, for overseas, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, whatever it may be. There's nothing wrong with learning a trade. You know, there's nothing wrong with, you know.
Davian wants to jump in on this one. I see some interesting faces.
So, just before you touch it, sorry, just to finish my point, there's nothing wrong with going through alternate routes of, you know, some people's passions are not even able to get a degree in. There's so many people who they just like masonry, they just like doing this, just as an example. But there's so many things that might not necessarily have a degree for it that are viable opportunities for making a life for yourself. So I think there needs to be a greater awareness raised for non-traditional opportunities.
Understood. I'll come back to Cleveland now.
Right, and Aidan makes a good point that certainly there is a role for technical and vocational education and training in the modern economy that we're trying to build. But at the traditional tertiary level, there needs to be greater funding at the tertiary sector. How government's funding of that sector operates now is on an arbitrary basis that is not transparent. So the government provides funding to public tertiary education institutions in the form of salaries, one-off grants to help with capital projects, etc. But there is no definite basis or measure or formula that determines how these one-off grants are given to institutions. Even the per capita subvention that the government gives to tertiary institutions is inconsistent across certain public sector institutions. So there has to be a greater transparency, and there has to be greater accountability in how funding is allocated. There is also the concern about equitable access to tertiary education. When we look, we have made progress in equitable access at the primary level, but at the tertiary level, and even to some degree at the secondary level, there are still gaps, and these gaps are characterized by socioeconomic challenges, gender, and your geographic location. Those who are in rural areas have less of access. So as a solution, there needs to be greater emphasis on providing funding on a needs basis, meaning if you don't have the capacity to cover the cost of tuition, then you should be provided with a scholarship. Rather than looking solely at academic merit when we are providing scholarships, we should also take into account, as the Orlando Patterson report said, how we can provide funding for those who are from lower income households.
All right. And that is the point on which we will take this quick break. You are watching a CVM TV special youth forum. More when we come back. Welcome back to CVM's Youth Forum. We are going deeper into education issues and funding. Of course, we will start with Britannia. Britannia, what do you make of the current situation in Jamaica regarding accessing tertiary education? You are a graduate?
I am a third-year bachelor's.
Okay, what are you studying and how is it for you accessing education in Jamaica?
All right, so I am studying journalism, and so including housing, it's almost $700,000. So that's pretty expensive, and believe it or not, my degrees is one of the more affordable degrees. Now, as it relates to funding, I do believe that there are opportunities for gaining scholarships. You know, you have JAMPRO, Burger King. There's so many different organizations and companies that offer these things. But I think the main issue is that people are not necessarily knowledgeable about these opportunities. So I think that we need to get information out there so that people can apply for these scholarships. And as somebody, it was aforementioned that scholarships usually focus on academics, like your GPA. It doesn't really take into consideration if you have a skill or some talent. So I think that these organizations and companies can broaden the frame and allow more persons to access these opportunities, because truth and in fact, there are a lot of people out there who would like to further their education, but they cannot afford it, and they are not knowledgeable about means of affording it. So that's the major issue for me.
I see quite a bit of buy-in from the back row.
So, yeah, I wanted to agree with what she was saying, because I, for one, know a lot of people with a lot of potential who just simply cannot afford tertiary education, people that I'm very close to as well. So it kind of breaks my heart to see that I have friends who I went to high school with who are very brilliant young men who, because they don't have any support, their knowledge just seems to, in a sense, goes to waste.
So what do they do now, those in particular that you know?
Well, they are working. Well, you know, standard cost of living is high minimum wage, to me, I don't think it is sustainable, especially if you have children. So imagine how does a person feel with their cognitive ability working in, let's say, a supermarket? No disrespect to people who work in supermarkets, but how does a person feel who probably left high school with like 7, 8 subjects, have to be working in a supermarket because they cannot afford to go to college?
Okay, so dreams and visions dashed because of limited options for financing or funding tertiary education. But then we earlier discussed that it's not everyone who will aspire to going into a university setting based on the skill set that they possess or their general desires in life. So talk to me a little more, but I'm seeing Dana. Dana, you were so bursting with ideas in the background there, waiting to be seen. Yes, Dana.
I also wanted to add that there are over 19,000 students going to UA and graduating. There's over 12,000 students going to UTech, not to mention the other universities. I do believe that there is funding, and even the government has put out funding, but I simply don't believe it is enough given the circumstances that majority of our students are in. So even though there are like hundreds of scholarships, there are only 2 people benefiting from each scholarships.
But can I just touch on something that you said real quick? Sorry to interrupt. So, when you say funding, are we just looking at school fees? Because she said something about housing. A lot of people, you can get student loans, yeah, of course. You can get student loans. But if you come into Kingston, you want to get somewhere to rent. What is the rent like? 50,000 a
So
month?
it's a different reality.
Yeah.
So
Certain scholarships do include housing and give you pocket money, but it's so few and far in between.
Okay.
But I must say that in terms of the scholarships being available, I am a person who believe in searching for information and see what it is about. And
You're
when
a
I
rarity.
and when I look at the outline of the scholarship and the requirement, it is only about your GPA. It doesn't ask if you are coming from a low-income family to find out if this person really need it. And sometimes you go there, you don't have the GPA to apply for it, but you really need it. And I see where persons who have a higher GPA, most times they can afford, because their parents are maybe in the lower middle class or upper middle class, and the person who really want it cannot get it just because of a GPA.
Is it ever the reality where the GPA is a little lower oftentimes because they're not comfortable enough to get to the academic acumen that they aspire
to? Emotional breakdown.
And not just that, but a lot of persons don't take into consideration what people have to do to supplement those funds that they need. So, for example, I had to work all through university.
Because law school isn't cheap.
Because law school isn't right. And that's something I also wanted to mention, that student loan, to my understanding, gives a maximum of $1 million.
Which is a percentage.
Which is still a percentage of law school.
What's the total, if you don't mind telling us?
The total at UWI right now is $10,000 US, which comes around to $1.6 million yearly. And again, that's just tuition. And so when you consider miscellaneous fees, when you consider books, which law books are tremendously expensive, housing is through the roof. And I sympathize with my friends who are doing medicine, for example, that every time at a particular year, weeping and gnashing of teeth because $2 million, $3 million balance due before they can actually be eligible to sit their exams and stuff like that.
And I heard you mention student loan. So for student loan, you have to have guarantors to access that student loan.
And that's still the situation?
Yes. Before it was 2, now it's 1.
Okay.
But still they have to be making a certain amount of money for you to actually use them as a guarantor. They will tell you that this person does not qualify because they don't make enough money to cover your loans, especially if you're going to law school where you have to pay that chunk of money. They will assist you a little bit more when you're at normal money law school, but when you're at normal money law school, to get access to housing on campus is even worse. you
Why?
are last in terms of options when it comes on to housing. Even if you have the money up front, they look at mostly at the students who are registered as UWI students. Though the Norman Manley Law School campus is on the UMONA campus, you are not favored when it comes on to housing. So then you have to look outside of, which most times is in Mona, and they understand that you don't really have a lot of options. So they're going to look at me, a university student, and say, oh, you're rent for a 1-bedroom that you're going to share the kitchen, the living spaces, $70,000.
Yes.
Now, if I'm supposed to pay that, get textbooks, remember, with that also, I would have to go to legal aid clinic. There's a court requirement as well. With all of that, I am still supposed to be able to pay that $70,000 rent. So we have to think about student loan is not just going to offer up that, and also there's an application fee, and there's also a processing fee.
What are we talking about when application and processing fees? So you can apply, you don't get through, but that money is gone.
Yes, if you don't get through, that money is gone.
How much money are we talking about? Just an example.
So for example, I took the student loan, and what happened was the fee, there are 2 separate fees, the application and the processing. The processing is a total different fee. The processing is to actually go through the document. The application fee is actually for them to take the document from you. And so if you don't pay those fees together, they will not touch, literally will not touch the document.
You know, you're on a topic, and I want to ask you young people now, how confident are any of you, all of you, that you will get your return on investment once you've completed your degrees?
Don't believe I will.
Hey, this, you know, funny enough, I was having a conversation with some friends on Friday night when I was leaving from Kingston to go to St. Elizabeth. And we were talking about some of our friends who had left university who are now working. Honestly, I must say that those friends that I have that have left university who are now working are in a much better position than they were before they were going to school. So I think there are opportunities out there to get jobs that pay well. So I'm not going to really discredit.
So I would look at the scholarship as if they are offering something, but yet still they are taking from us.
It's like a catch?
Yes. So if they are giving us something, then we should not be going through so much to get the assistance, because we need an educational assistance.
But
and
we're in Jamaica, and they say if you want good, your nose have to run.
Well, but let us look at it. This should be something where the government comes in and look at it and say, we are not treating our students with justice, because there is no way I can be paying a processing fee and the application fee, and then I might get it.
But Britannia, all right, before I go to Britannia, Cleveland quickly, and then I'm taking you, Britannia. I see you wanted to jump in on this one.
Right. Kemoy raised an important point, and I think that we have to give significant consideration to reforming the lending mechanism of the SLB, in as much as the SLB is the chief lending agency for the government. So currently the requirement to have a guarantor prevents many people, many students from low-income households to access. We should abolish the guarantor requirement, and we should ramp up efforts and become more stringent on collecting payment at the end of the loan arrangement, etc. So unless that is pursued, we're going to have a lot of persons who are from low-income households not being able to have that kind of access to the financing necessary.
All right, stick your thoughts right there. I'm going right now to Britannia. Don't come into this one yet, Aidan. So yes, Britannia.
My thoughts on funding are a little bit different. So I personally, my parents thankfully covered my first 2 years at Mona, but then my 3rd year, we were all wondering, where is this money coming from? And I personally did not want to get involved with the SLB because I heard only bad stories about it, only scary things. So I opted for work and travel, and I must say it was very helpful in terms of allowing me to help my parents to cover my tuition. And I think it's very disheartening when I'm around my friends from like high school and everywhere else, and a lot of them wanted to study different things, but they couldn't because of funding.
Affordability.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much. That's where we take a quick break here on our CVM Youth Panel discussion, and we will be right back. Welcome back. You're watching CVM's Youth Forum. Let's talk employment, entrepreneurship, and migration. Young people, look alive. Labor in Jamaica, employability after you finished your degree. What's the outlook? What are you dreading the most?
Things rough.
The
Okay, go ahead, Cleveland.
Right. The reality is that our economy is still ensnared in a state of low wage, low tech, low growth. So the kind of jobs that we have in Jamaica are low paying jobs. The jobs that are on the rise are low paying jobs. So you look at the business process outsourcing sector, those are the jobs that we are attracting, which are not value-added jobs. So the capacity for it to really expand the economic output is not there. And then the capacity for you to take in income that can sustain the cost of living that you're going through is not there as well. So we really have to look at how we can create higher paying jobs, how we can employ technology and innovation to create different sectors that will employ people.
But I'm not going to bash it. I'm asking, aren't we seeing more new trending jobs appearing? We
Yeah,
have
like
more
social
vlogging, blogging, all of those things, and social media influencers. What do you make of all of this, though?
How long is that going to last?
But I
though?
say that as a social media influencer, that's just a percentage of the wider Jamaica and who want jobs in Jamaica. When you look at it, put it as you leaving university with your degree, you go out there in the world, you are not finding a job that can even sustain your family.
Yeah.
So,
So, Davian, you expect to leave university and get the ideal job just off the bat?
No, but if, how it is now,
Yes.
you leave and the small job you get, maybe it is guaranteed that that is going to be the job for the rest of the time. Because what happens is persons leave, find jobs, but they cannot see it as a livable condition. So what is the next thing? They plan to leave the country and say that I cannot stay in this any longer, and they move and say I'm going to look for a better life.
I'm going to take Graham and jump before I take you, Mr. Pattisu, because Graham, I heard you with a very unique point in the break.
But Cleveland would have raised the point earlier where it says that, you know, the jobs are low paying. Now, many university students sees it as, okay, I'm going to spend this amount of money to go to school. And when I come out, I can't pay back my student loan. So that's one. I can't live comfortably. Because remember, the thing that is sold to us as high school students are growing up is that you go to university, you get a good job, you live a good life, you have a nice family.
Education is my investment into myself.
Exactly, it is seen as you're not seeing a return on that investment. So that leads to a lot of young people running off, quote unquote, or just leaving the country, right? Because they don't see it at, okay, I can stay here and have a, lavish life, because that is what is being sold. And they're seeing persons on social media that are not doing the things that they are doing, not going along the right channels, but they cannot afford or they cannot live like these persons, and they're going in the right way.
And on that point of social media, how sustainable is that though? Like, yes, YouTube is trending now, but will it be trending 10, 15 years from now? Will they be able to maintain that? Because we've seen the rise and death of several social media apps. We've seen Musical.ly, we've seen Vine. Where are those people now? And even to go into those sectors, you still require the technology that you mentioned, like the cameras, the internet, like where are they going to get those?
Just a slightly different view. I would not be too skeptical about those kind of careers.
Yes.
I think that there is a potential for a creative economy, and we should really look at how that creative economy could supply us with these jobs. So from the government's perspective, there really need to be coordination and a bit of structure that is provided to this kind of creation of a creative economy, because traditional jobs simply alone won't cut it.
All right, Demario and then Aidan.
Yes, so I'm glad Cleveland spoke about what the government can do. I want to talk to us as young people, because I feel as though we do ourselves a disservice, especially for those of us who go into universities, etc., and are pursuing traditional jobs. We do ourselves a disservice in one, focusing so much on academia that we don't find time to network, find time to develop other skills during our time in university, which makes you so much more marketable afterward. What research shows us is that people are now more educated, are more intelligent than they were, so to speak, 100, 200 years ago. And so, for example, when you come out of university having finished your undergraduate, 100, 200 years ago, you would have been the creme de la creme. You could get in any job. But nowadays, you have to go to a master's degree. You have to get a PhD. So that's one. Two, as Cleveland said, I wouldn't discount social media and those more contemporary and creative industries. But she does raise a point, because my understanding now is that, for example, TikTok, which has been a major income generator for a lot of people, they've been relatively constantly changing the way in which they provide remuneration to these vloggers and these creatives on TikTok. And so now I'm hearing creatives say that the money that they would be making through TikTok have been cut in half. Same thing with YouTube. The amount that they were being paid 5 years ago.
Taxes as well, they get
taxes, etc. And so what I want to emphasize to young people is to ensure that you are so flexible that, because at the end of the day, things are always changing, right? Things are always going to change. Even if you stay in the same career, the way you do it will change. True. So ensure that whenever it is that you finish your formal education, your formal educational journey, that you have that flexibility, you have a wide range of skills that will allow you to be employable, and employable at a really good wage in the long run.
Is there a fear that AI could potentially replace some of the jobs you're now looking at?
Absolutely.
Always.
Aidan, I take you on this.
Well, just to touch back on something we were talking about earlier in regards to migration, I think there's the general belief among Jamaicans, older generation and younger generation, that the grass is always greener when you migrate. It's not the case. That is simply not the case. There are plenty of people who migrate, sit down in a job that may pay more than it would have in Jamaica, but then the cost of living is also comparatively different there. It's higher. You know, we might make more working in one job in America, but then the cost of living, the cost of going to the doctor, the cost of paying your rent is also twice as much as it would have been, and you're making twice as much as you would have in Jamaica. So your standard of living is no different.
So Brianna, you had an experience on the work and travel program through which you were able to assist yourself and all of that. But I want to touch on the possibility of artificial intelligence. Can that be a real game changer rather than to leave Jamaica, go abroad, migrate to do the jobs that you assume you can't do in Jamaica and earn the US dollars or the pound and whatever? Is artificial intelligence something to fear, or is it something for us to uniquely as a people to understand and see how we can craft new income streams through?
I believe it is something we should fear. I was talking to an individual, and the person saying, 5 years from now, I might have to just do another degree, because what I am doing now, computer can do it. Mm-hmm. And that degree was in some environmental science thing. And he was saying that they have no machines in the farm doing what I did my degree for. So AI can be a good thing, yes. But when you look at certain jobs that we have now, it is taking away the opportunity for persons to use their physical labor and do that job.
But were young people of this generation really tapping all out into using their mental capacities versus Googling every other thing?
I want to step in on that. As said before, AI can be... I'm so sorry for that. As said before, AI can be a good thing, but it can also be a negative thing. What we're seeing now is that a lot of, especially students in this time, they are using AI in a way that can negatively affect them, while AI has the power to positively help them. for example, everyone here on a test is Googling answers. They're finding out from AI, ChatGPT, OpenAI. They're having those doing their essays for them, their labs for them. When in cases that AI, you can copy and paste your essays in AI and ask it to read through. How much would you grade this given the question, given whatever it is? Because AI as artificial intelligence, it has the power to do more than we give it to do. So with AI, going back to jobs again, yes, AI can be a good thing. It can also present negative benefits. Do I believe AI is something we should fear for? Considering the terms of how the world is going right now, we can fear, because a lot of jobs, especially creative jobs, there are AIs that can turn text into images. There are AI that can do a whole bunch of things. On TikTok, I believe, we see where AI is making voice effects like SpongeBob singing to Adele or things like that.
The reality.
The reality is that.
Well, one thing that we haven't really been looking at is really how can us as youth really use AI to really amplify our opportunities. Because as you said, you know, people would have used AI for work and so forth like that, and someone would have raised the point that, okay, you can use it to check your grade, right? But if you're really looking at it, if I as an individual can say, okay, I want to become a graphic designer, right? And I can put a text into a, for example, Canva, right? Okay. And on Canva, it gives you a nice graphic that you couldn't sit down by yourself and make it, right? But you can go on a website like Fiverr or freelancing, and some persons don't know about this technology, but you as an individual know about it, so you can use this to amplify and get some finances out of. You can offer services for this. So it's not really that where you, like AI is being used for the wrong reasons, right? And what we should fear as youth is that it takes away from the cognitive part of our life. Because when we use the AIs to do our schoolwork, you know, we're not thinking, the critical part of our brain is taken away. But if we use it in the sense that you check your work, you try to make a money off it, I don't see an issue with it.
And I don't see an issue why we can't take the break, because it's getting really exciting here. But when we come back, our final segment will be politics. Stay with us. Exciting times here on CVM's Youth Forum. We are now coming back to a discussion on politics and policies with our young people for Youth Month. And we're starting off with Brianna. Brianna, I know you've said to me earlier, I don't really like politics, and I've said, but politics has a lot to do with policies, and policies affect every area of our lives as young people especially. What are some of the areas that you believe young people need to do more in, or politicians and politics can do more to help young people in?
I think young people from the get-go should be introduced a little bit more to politics, because I can remember being in like primary school, high school, we touched a little bit on maybe government and what government is, but we didn't really dive into maybe the importance of the government, policy making issues, and just simple things like that. Because nowadays I realize that a lot of my age group or even younger, they're not interested in politics, and they don't want to be. They don't want to hear about it. They feel like it's about choosing sides, and they feel like choosing sides is detrimental, and yeah.
I see
all the hands going. All right, before you jump in, I'm just going to toss this one out there. Do you also believe the country is going in the right direction? If yes, why? If no, why not?
Okay, so I'm going to make the point. Again, I tackle that question. Right. In Jamaica now, the way in which our politics is going is that young people are saying that, why am I going to vote when they come when it's election time, they get the vote, and then nothing.
It's a played out political culture.
Yes. So our country is not going in the right direction, meaning our country is laid out to become or to be a democratic political system from independence up till now, and it has failed. It has failed in a way where persons are now voting for personal benefits. They are not taking into consideration the policies and social developments of this country.
Something that I would like to add to your point, I am just putting it out there. There is a desperate need for political education in our country. And to explain what I'm trying to say, right? As an individual, as a person, right, coming from rural Jamaica, the only thing that I know about politics is that some people born into JLP, some people born into PMP, and really and truly, if you really think about it, they don't know why they vote. Right? And in that sense, you know, people don't vote because, and it is said to be a democratic system, but if it's a case that people vote because this is what you're loyal to, it is not democratic. You get me? Because the only reason democratic is because of vote.
So that affects accountability as well.
Yes, because so you won't see a person voting because this is the right policy for young people or the right policy to see the country move forward.
In fact, it would appear, therefore, that is the least likely reason you're going to vote.
Yeah, but put two persons together and you say, this one has a good plan and this one has some money. They will vote for the one with the money and get the $5,000, the $10,000, and then the one with the ideas and the policies that will make you better.
That will not push aside. So Kemoe in the background, Kemoe.
Speaking of political education, when I was in grade 6, I got introduced to governance. My teacher decided to call it governance instead of politics because I told her I didn't like the word. So she decided that she was going to use governance instead. And she asked me what it meant to me. What does politics mean to me? Why I don't like the word? And I thought in grade 6, the point I should have known what the government was supposed to be doing. I thought that the opposition's role was to combat everything that the government did, and the government's role was to say why not to vote for the opposition. And so that became a problem. And what also I realized is that a lot of people, their families tell them, oh, vote for JLP, but you can't tell me why to vote for JLP or why to vote for PNP. So my issue is, don't focus on the colors. Forget the colors. Forget the party I'm associated with. What do I bring to that table? Why is it beneficial to you? Then when you vote for me, hold me accountable. I think if we focus on that more, then we can put the country in the right direction.
But how is this generation going to hold anybody accountable if you have so much voter apathy? You guys don't vote.
Well, I believe
but the reason is because of what has happened over the years. People get tired of what they are seeing happening, where they put somebody in, no representation, you pass your window, wind up, you don't care about me anymore, right? So people just fall out.
Say something, please. So,
Yes, Giovanni.
so like, I like to look at history, right? And looking at the political spectrum in Jamaica in the 70s. Sorry to be mentioning a specific party, but in the 70s, early 80s, what the PMP was about the people. Moving on now to 2022, maybe 23, sorry, maybe politicians from both sides have forgotten what they stand for and why they are politicians in the first place. Probably they are now politicians for incentive and not to be public servants as they should be. So I think before we can start to see better policies, better management of the government, I think politicians need to take a look into themselves and remember why they became politicians in the first place.
But why should they bother? Who is holding them to account? Aside from the media and a few advocates.
So our vote is our voice. And if we use our vote in the right way, then they will see that people are now ready to say that we can hold you accountable. Now in Parliament, they are trying to push something that says we need to identify roles and responsibilities of member of parliament and roles and responsibilities of different political personnel. If that is there and you can say this is my role, my responsibility, we as regular citizens will be able to hold you more accountable based on your role and responsibility.
Because you know now in black and white what they should look like.
Yes.
Damario.
Yeah, I think that the solution in this is going to require one side, and when I say one side, I mean either politicians or the people, to take a leap of faith. And the reason I
So
say
they should
that
all
is
get
that
baptized?
no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I mean, probably if you want, right, but no. But the reason I say that is that just as is the case with distrusting the police force, for example, and heightened levels of crime rate, I think that the distrust people have in politicians and the sort of performative governance that we have been seeing in the past is wrapped up in a cycle. So I'd like to believe that there are some, especially some young people that I saw coming up who were really passionate about making a change, who really wanted to do something, but realized the type of system in which they've gone, and they realized that, hey, I could be really working to build real policy to effect change, but what the people respond to is if I go into the community and buy them a big deal or buy them a meal deal. And so they may feel pressured with a view to staying in power, with a view to staying in that position, to cave to that. And in the same way, people, we have seen, we've gone out, we've voted, but we have not seen a change. And so right now we just feel sort of resigned to the position in which we are. So one of us, or both of us, will have to take a leap of faith and say, all right, this year, this general elections, as a people, we'll go out, we'll review the manifestos, we'll look at the policies that they're suggesting, and we'll vote. And then after we'll hold them accountable. And the politicians need to say, okay, what we will do is stop this performative madness and actually implement stuff to change our society for the better.
I think there's a significant decay in civic pride, and to be held culpable for that is the generation that raised us. There was a failure in transmitting that kind of civic pride that was rife in their generation to our generation. So what you see among us is no sense of purpose or sense of responsibility in the advancement of the country, but there's now just a greater sense for instant gratification, what can resolve just my challenges and what I care about right now. And then it relates well to what Demaria says, and that is why when politicians go into the streets or go on the road, they request, the demands from them are about my immediate challenge that I'm facing.
So the temporary fixes.
It's not about the societal advancement or the macro issues that we're facing as a country that will have micro implications for us.
Okay.
So we have to build that sense of civic pride.
Understood. Aidan?
Yes, you know, everybody kind of laid out their points, and what I had to say kind of got lost somewhere in the conversation.
Oh.
But no, I wanted to say something in relation
Giovanni,
to somebody else.
all right?
No, but
Line up.
what I wanted to say was, I believe that we've used the word culture a lot today, and political tribalism is a massive issue that exists in Jamaican society in particular.
It passed down from the British system also.
Exactly. So one thing I do have to say is that I think voter apathy, while it might be an issue that, you know, if you consider your vote your voice, young people aren't using their voices per se, but I believe it's actually, it might be a good indication that there is a culture shift away from the political tribalism that used to exist and used to run rampant. It might be an issue now because, you know, you still have a lot of the older generation who have that point of view, and they are the majority of the vote. But, you know, for the future coming, that voter apathy shows that young people have a displeasure with what has been going on in the first place. I believe that politics is inherently flawed all over the world. There needs to be a complete shift in how politics is presented. It shouldn't be red versus blue, green versus orange. And that's how it's portrayed. You know, we see in Parliament, it's an argument. It's really, if I shout louder and my side of the panel slams their desk the loudest, then therefore, Mr. Speaker, I won. Therefore, Mr. Speaker,
shoes
I
may
won.
be thrown.
Yeah, so with politics is inherently flawed. I believe that from hundreds of years ago, how politicians, who's the most charismatic, doesn't matter who has the best policies, matter, okay, can I go to the people and can I speak to people? We see it in Jamaica. Everything in Jamaica is a song. You need people to vote for you.
We're creative people.
Yeah, you need people to vote for you. Get a dub plate from a popular artist. You need people to buy this product. Every advertisement is a song. It's who you. It's how you can appeal to the people. And while yes, that is a part of it.
Yes.
You need the way we perceive politics needs to be more focused on literate literally what this person is doing.
These must be your final 2 cents because we're going to Giovanni next. Giovanni, your final 2 cents on this matter.
So I want to touch on something, but it seems like we don't have enough time for that. So
No,
I'll just
we're
ask
wrapping up.
Cleveland. I just want to ask Cleveland a question. He mentioned civic pride. So when I mention civic pride, I guess you're talking about civil servants. Might be talking about civil servants.
No, just the general sense that we have as Jamaicans, that we have a role to play in the country's advancement.
Can I speak about civil servants then? Can I ask you a question about, since as you're more in depth in finance, so as it relates to civil servants, nurses, doctors, police officers, soldiers, right? Do you think that giving them a better salary would result in better performances? So like, you think if I should raise the pay for police officers, do you think that if the government should raise the pay for police officers, sorry, do you think that they would be more inclined to put in better efforts to fight crime?
Right.
Do you think that nurses...
Right, so you have 20 seconds to
Right,
get that.
I respond. So better pay is always an incentive to perform well, but I think that we have to really look at the country's fiscal capacity. The government has just recently undertaken a massive reclassification of public sector wages. I don't think that right now we have the kind of fiscal space to pursue any increase, because we have to ensure that we adhere to fiscal discipline and prudent financial sustainability of our finances.
All right,
Well, I hope he answered it, because now all of you will have a question to answer. When you think of the future, what one word sums it up? I'm going this way and then in the back. Starting with you, Cleveland.
Dark.
Oh my.
Sad.
Uncertain.
I didn't hear that.
Uncertain.
Uncertain. Ah.
Expensive.
The unknown, really.
All right, we're going to the back row now. Giovanni.
Dark.
You can't take somebody with it. You can concur and then give me your next word.
That one word can sum up how me see the future, because
All right,
I have
you know what? We're going to skip you.
All right.
Dana.
Unknown.
I'm not dealing with this
The
section
front
of the
row
back
did
row.
everything.
Perilous. Perilous.
I'm a generally optimistic person, so bright.
So am I. I'm a little bit hopeful over here.
Oh, that's the hopeful corner. Final word, Kemoy.
Well, I'm going to say that I feel like if we decide to vote, if we decide to use our voices, if we decide to hold people accountable that we vote for and put in power, the people that you put in power are accountable to you. Therefore, if you don't vote, therefore you have nobody to hold it accountable.
It's one word, but you got many words.
But I'm hopeful.
Hands up.
My word is promising.
Who among you will vote in the next election?
Voted in the last one.
This is my first time, and I definitely will use my vote.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask it again in case you missed it. Who among you will not vote in the next election?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
We'll see. I'm not sure.
Okay, so some of you are on the fence. All right, well, you know what? That's where we leave you on this special CVM News Forum with young people. They are indeed the future. A lot to digest, but thank you so much for watching. I am Nika Lewis. Stay tuned.